Greetings to all, greetings to all those from watching around the world. It is my pleasure today to welcome you to the second edition of the Student Internet Governance Forum. We assemble here today to discuss a burgeoning issue, an issue which dictates the essence of students and of adolescents, education, and how artificial intelligence is set to impact it. To enlighten us, we have with us a student panel which will discuss the issue as they see it from their own eyes. Leading the discussion, we have Darshan Shah, a fellow at SIGF. The floor is yours.
Hi, Kavish. Thank you for organizing a meet like this and inviting us students to have our say. I think, as we can already see through all over the internet, models like ChatGPT and many others have taken the world by storm. I mean, it is truly a revolution, and they have penetrated every field there is to penetrate. And so, education being one of them. And there's already benefits and there are benefits as well as problems with this. uh, the most obvious benefits are, of course, the ease of access to everyone. The internet is accessible to a lot of people, not everyone, but through these models which are available, education and good education is available to a lot more people. And of course, AI being intelligent is personalizable. So many platforms like Khan Academy already have a collaboration with OpenAI to make learning more personalized for students. And that is, of course, free and more accessible. But on the flip side, these models and AI in general also have a sinister side to them, in which uh, since they can replicate humans and human content so well, they are used to cheat out of the education thing. So, plagiarism, for example, is a rising problem with the use of ChatGPT and such. So, I think to balance these drawbacks and benefits, it's important to have some guidelines. And as this AI revolution grows, it's important to, as a community and as a society, have some rules in play, and we are here to discuss them. So I think we can open this up to the other students in the panel, and then we can see how the discussion goes. Um,
Yeah, so I'm Rakshit from Oberoi International School, and as Darshan said, AI has clearly changed the game in every single field, and education is one of them. And I agree with the fact that regulations need to be set, but I think that you cannot ignore the use of AI in education anymore, and it has to be integrated in some way, shape, or form.
Rajat, would you like to add?
So since the introduction of these models, classrooms have had to adapt, and so like some teachers choose to implement them into their teaching, while others use it like outlaw it, and then you're not like they use detecting tools. So there are two sides to this, and we can um, explore both.
Right. So the question on screen here is, what are the impacts of the current generation models on education? So, for example, ChatGPT, the most common one. And how has the classroom changed since their introduction? So, as you mentioned, students and teachers have begun to incorporate them into their learning and teaching experiences, which, of course, can make them better. But there are also students that are using it to get around the hard work. So, I think, like I also mentioned in the introduction, one important aspect of AI, and like you said, we can't ignore it anymore, and we have to embrace it in education as well as other fields. And while embracing it, we must acknowledge the positive aspects that we want to keep and try to stay away from the negative aspects. So I think one important positive aspect, and the way that the classroom dynamic has changed since the introduction of these models, is that of course, since these are available to everyone, and these kind of take over the grunt work from the students and the teachers. So I think higher level order thinking become more important since the introduction of these models. So what I mean is, I'll just give you an example. In computer science before, being able to code solutions and like knowing the syntax of your language was important because you obviously had to write it manually. And that's a kind of lower level. I mean, not that it's not like it's a good thing, of course, but it's a lower level work. It's almost like grunt work in the sense that you have an idea and it's just the implementation. But now, with the introduction of ChatGPT and Copilot and other coding AIs, uh, it's more important for you to have the idea and to have the leading outline of your design, and then the coding is secondary. So you don't have to worry about having the tools to make your idea succeed. So in that sense, higher order thinking has become more important.
Yeah, I completely agree. You should think of AI more of as a tool, like how miners they use pickaxes as a tool. AI is just a tool to do your work, but you have to have the idea to be able to use it successfully. I agree with
Yeah,
you.
Uh, so the next question is, how should, if at all, artificial intelligence be integrated in our curriculums and classrooms, and will this integration be inclusive to all? So some of the in my opinion, some teachers are using it to help with research, especially like when you do not understand some specific topic in your class. You can ask the AI to explain it to you, but it should not go like, if you have to write a research paper, it should not be writing it for you, rather
right.
than just like providing you a definition so you understand it and are able to write it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like you said, it shouldn't be completing and submitting the entire work for you, because then you have no right over it. Like you can't claim that it's your work, of course. But like Rajat also said, it is a tool and it can help you in ways to complete the overall work or like whatever project that you are on. Yeah. And AI in classrooms and curriculums, I think it has already been used in online classrooms. Like I said, Khan Academy's integration with OpenAI. And I think a good way to integrate AI would be to make things more personalizable. In an online environment like Khan Academy, there's like millions of users. And of course, the content is general. There's not one teacher who is specifically going to every student and clearing their doubts and addressing their concerns. But with AI, that's possible to some extent, of course. It won't be as good as a live classroom. But I feel making things more personalizable for the students when it's not possible manually is a great way that AI can be integrated into our classrooms, and especially online classrooms, which are growing today. And to address the second part of the question, will this integration be inclusive to all? That is also part of a bigger discussion regarding AI. There have already been examples where algorithms and machine learning predictive technologies have shown to have biases. So that includes cultural and racial biases as well. And these ultimately come about from the data that they're trained on. So since the internet is has more content for white men, for that are like the models that are trained from this data will cater more nicely to that category. And I think to address this concern with education in particular, it's even more important to be inclusive because uh, education is a powerful tool, and having just limited access to it or discriminatory access to it is like more impactful than it sounds like. And I think there are already efforts being taken to make AI more inclusive. There was this research by a South African scientist who first found out in 2018 that algorithms can be biased, and she has made a foundation in which data sets that are available for these models are made as inclusive as possible, and she has come up with ways to measure how diverse the data set is. So I think we're already on the right track, but we just have to be mindful of it and have in that have that in mind that even though these are algorithms, they are subject to bias.
Yeah, in terms of language bias, the bias is certainly present and it's not yet inclusive to everybody of all languages. Like in India, like there's several languages which we speak here, for instance, Kannada in Karnataka or Punjabi in Punjab. And of course, the AI can't function as well in these languages as it does in English, which does pose a problem to inclusivity and integration of AI in all schools across the country.
Yeah, and since of course OpenAI is based in the US, it makes sense for their technology to first be addressing English speakers. But I think as we move forward, we should contextualize these solutions to not just follow the Western methodology as we have in the past with the Industrial Revolution, but with this AI revolution to have also, I mean, of course, a global context, but also a local context and address our contextual needs because they are definitely different from the Western countries. And that, of course, includes language.
Yeah, so okay, so the next question. How will student skill and aptitude be measured with the introduction of artificial intelligence, and are existing benchmarks like essays adequate with AI? So I'll just start speaking. Student skill and aptitude now, so it'll be less distinct. So you wouldn't like with the introduction with AI detection tools such as Turnitin and other ones that like ChatGPT Zero, you can tell when they plagiarize it directly from the AI. But with other tools such as like rephrasers, it that becomes a little bit harder to distinguish. So measuring student skill and aptitude will become much harder with existing benchmarks like essays and research papers, book reports, just anything with more writing uh, that can be done at home or online will be which can't be distinguished from student work and like plagiarized work. So that's a issue that that I think we need to find more solutions to.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I feel the current benchmarks that we have for intelligence, things like essays and tests, are all replaceable by AIs. I mean, AIs can answer those questions and write essays that, I mean, maybe not now, but very soon will be indistinguishable from human essays. And I feel like what is more important in terms of measuring intelligence now more than ever is to consider a broader approach, to consider a student's ability to handle many different aspects of a project. So, not just one test, not just a math test, and not just one essay about one topic, because those AIs can do. But something like assigning a project to a student and grading them or testing them on how they handle the many different aspects of it, because that is much harder for them to cheat by using AI. So I think that becomes a more potent measure of intelligence now. Now that again, this relates back to what I was saying about in classrooms as well. Higher level order thinking is more important now since that AI is in the play.
Yeah, I agree, but I have a different method for dealing with how to prevent the use of AI in tests. So now recently, since tests are all being taken digitally, like essays also, you have to submit them online. You could
Yeah,
revert back to the old standard of writing down on paper, and then it becomes nearly impossible to use AI. And it's an
I
important
right.
skill as
for
well. Yeah.
Hmm.
for that,
But
if you're going back to a paper, you can still use AI to come up with ideas. And like, when does it become your own work rather than like if you're using AI to come like generate ideas, is it's not your own ideas, is it?
yeah.
So then does it become your own work?
I think I think differently about that. I feel like he said also, AI is a tool, And in the past, for ideas, I mean, if we bounce ideas off of our teachers or our colleagues and then gain inspiration from that, I think that's perfectly acceptable. And as long as we follow through on those ideas, that work would be considered original. So I feel AI, in the sense, can to some extent replace that. In the sense, you can have an outline or like a bouncing back and forth discussion with ChatGPT, for instance, about a topic, about what you want to write about. And as long as that stays general and it's an inspiration to you, I feel like the work can still be considered original. But that's just my opinion. I think that many people would feel otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. As long as the execution is yours, then it's okay to get an idea.
Yeah. Right. So a point here is that the IBO and Education Board allows students to use AI in their essays as long as the work is cited. And this again is relating to AI is just a tool, because in the past it's perfectly been acceptable to read other articles, read other people's work, get inspiration from there, maybe even cite those articles. So maybe AI can not replace, but be one of those things. So where if you do get help from AI and you cite it in whatever way that we deem should be like appropriate, then then like you've given the proper credit that is not yours, and the rest is still your work. I think that's an interesting take.
So, who wants to go first?
Yeah, you could go ahead.
No, what's
Okay, so how can multi-stakeholderism be leveraged for policy making in this particular domain? So, as we mentioned in the introduction as well, AI is in many, many fields, and from data collection to the actual deployment of the algorithm, there are a lot of different domains and parties involved in the making of an AI model. And that involves a lot of stakeholders. So, there's, of course, the makers and the users broadly, but even in that, there are a lot of different aspects. And I think like a good way to handle AI would be to have professionals from various like diverse fields collaborate. So interdisciplinary studies and interdisciplinary approach to handling AI is, I think, going to be crucial. Uh, and what I mean by that is not just the people who are making them, not just the computer scientists that are making them, and on the other side, there's the government officials that are making the laws. I think that is a segmented, and like I don't think that will work very well. I think we need to have professionals and passionate people who know about the topic, also the policymakers, and that collaboration will, I think, result in the most like beneficial policy implementations of AI.
Yeah, I think on the term of should there be a single policy, it should be a single policy across countries at least. Because if you leave it up to schools, it may not be fair to the competition. Like for instance, if one school deems AI outlaws AI, it's not fair to the students of that school because the other schools are still allowed to use students are allowed to use AI. So I think it should be focused on a single policy across the country.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think I would go
um?
as far as to say, oh, I'm sorry, but yeah, I think I agree with that.
No, you
And
can
I would
go.
go as far as to say that maybe even some, not very restrictive, but some general guidelines should be there internationally as well. There should be an international body, something like the UN, which doesn't necessarily have laws, but it does have guidelines and practices that are applicable internationally. And I feel something like that for AI would be beneficial as well.
In my opinion, this issue is uh, nothing like anything before, because anyone can access AI online. It's open to everyone. So um, all making a policy and then implementing it would be extremely difficult, just because of how widespread it is and how anyone can use it from anywhere. So rather than that, we would need to have the AI people implement the policies themselves. Like OpenAI and Google need to have some sort of check for the uh, like who are using it, and they need to like what prompts can be given, and like copy and pasting features. Hmm.
Right.
So the next question is, how will future generation models impact education, such as Gemini and GPT-5, and how will we need to rethink the skills which students are taught? Will education even be necessary?
Um, I think that's a difficult question because even today, not education as a whole, but certainly some aspects of education uh, are becoming obsolete with the advent of AI, because things like I said, being it's like back in the day when calculating numbers was an important thing, but when calculators came about, that aspect of education and learning became less and less important. And I feel like now, maybe on a bigger scale and maybe on a different scale than we can imagine, with different things, something like that would surely happen. Some aspect of what we deem important in education right now would be replaceable and would become less important. But others, like I said, having a grip of the whole projects and being able to manage different things, having a broad perspective, would still be more important, and that I think would be a bigger focus of education in the future.
And to the point of is since a future AI models will most likely be able to do maths and make maths problem solving easier, does not necessarily mean maths becomes less important or less valuable. It just means it becomes easier. Essentially, it assists us with the ability to do maths just like the calculator did. So I don't think it's necessarily maths becoming less important.
Yeah, in fact, I would say that it's maths becoming more accessible to more people and to more advancements.
So some people are mentioning that AI will have multimodal. Uh, this means you can not only can type in the prompts, but you can type in a prompt to get text back, to get an image back, or give it an image to get an audio back. So will this mean interdisciplinary or design work becomes less important?
So in terms of image and even music now, because as Beatles are releasing another song with an AI voice of John Lennon, and art can be done by AI at Dali. It is a question to ask whether the jobs can be replaced by AI now. What are your thoughts?
Um, I think that is a more sensitive topic because art, this is like a big reform in art. But I feel there are artists who are taking it in a different spirit from the rest. So I don't recall the names right now. I can look up on that. But I think that I've come across artists on the internet that are leveraging AI not to replace their art, but to enhance their art. So to use AI tools uh, as a part of their art rather than the entire art itself. But of course, on the other hand, there's also the problem of like credit, because nowadays, especially with animated things, AI art is becoming way more lucrative than like human art, and it's also much quicker, less work, and it's taking away the jobs and originalities from people who used to who make their own art by hand or on their iPad, for example. So again, there are these both extreme sides to it. and we have to really be careful in terms of how we make policies about the use of AI in art.
Teachers, in my view, teachers, they can never be replaced because similar to doctors actually, because you can't replace doctors with AI. Why? Because human contact is important in medicine. Similarly, in education, I believe AIs cannot comprehend emotions, so a human teacher becomes more important, and that job can never be replaced on a whole.
So somebody in the YouTube chat is saying AI models are controlled by a few large corporations. Won't this pass on the biases of these models to students? And can these corporations act maliciously as a result?
Yeah, I feel like another big aspect in moving forward with AI is this might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but I feel like the more accessible AI technologies become to small scale organizations and just diverse organizations, that would be better, because we don't want to have a monopoly on AI. So just big companies like Google, Microsoft, if they are the only ones with AI products, whatever biases were incorporated in their data would be carried on to all of their products and eventually to all of their users. And since those biases were already present in society, it's like a spiral which just keeps enhancing those biases and making them more extreme. So if we have a lot more organizations making their own products, and if we have diverse organizations, so organizations from India, there's this organization in Mumbai and Delhi called Vadhwani AI, and they make their own text AI solutions for the local communities, so for agriculture and healthcare. So examples like that, if we have a lot more products and a lot more diversity, then we can kind of balance out that bias, because in the West, of course, there'll be bias to lighter skin tones, and in the West, or maybe like in our country, for example, we will be more biased to the like what our data has the majority of. And overall, if users have access to a plethora of these different algorithms, they can have a much bigger picture and like not be susceptible to the view of one single corporation. So another question on YouTube is, will there be a deterioration in thinking skills as a result of AI? And how can one deal with this, if at all? Um, yeah, I think this question is, uh, I mean, a difficult one to address. I think it's easy to see how there can be a deterioration in thinking skills, and it's a scary thing, because if everything is lies at the tip of our fingers, we don't even have to uh, like do anything, think anything to make our ideas into like products. I feel on the one hand it sounds like a dream, because you can just ideate and then it's already there. But on the other hand, it spares you all the work, and that means that you don't actually have to think about all the logical intricacies. You don't have to spend time with your work, which can result in you being disconnected from things that you're doing and make you less motivated. I think that's what I feel.
Yeah, over-reliance on AI is one of the primary concerns of integrating AI in any field. So there may be a deterioration in thinking skills, but I think it's also important because another skill comes up in this case, which is how to communicate and use AI properly to get
Hmm.
your work done. Like for instance, if you have a great idea and you don't know how to use AI, like it becomes more tedious for you rather than just using AI and execute.
Right. I think that's a great point, because communicating with AIs and the human computer interaction becomes a new skill for people to learn. And that, although it would replace traditional thinking, it will definitely add to that. And maybe some parts of the traditional thinking will become more obsolete, like we talked about, but others will come up. So it's just like a moving forward, and it's a paradigm shift. But I don't think as a whole, uh, we would lose much of. are thinking.
Yeah, I think like it'll just be a shift, like you said. Instead of thinking about the essay itself, like if you're writing on and like what the structure should be, you can think on how to get the answers you want and the information you need. So you will always need to think um, to use a tool and finish a product or like get what you want. So I don't think there will be a deterioration. It'll be just a shift in the like what skills are required and what you're actually thinking about.
Right. So another question on YouTube is: should we have an Indian AI, or like should each country have their own national AI? Um, I mean, I'm not exactly sure what the comment means by like national AI. I'm assuming is just like uh, okay, so a government-owned AI. So I'm assuming again, it's like just a general chatbot that can help. It's basically like a chat GPT but based in India, is what I'm assuming. I'm not completely sure, and that does sound like an interesting thing. But I feel like, well, I like already said, um, the more diverse organizations have access to AI, the better it will be for the users. But there is also a certain danger in making AI exclusive to the government. I'm not sure if exclusivity is part of this question here, but if it is, if you're saying that this AI will be controlled by the government and that'll be like a primary thing, then I don't think that's very safe, because as we have seen in the past, um, if a government controls completely access to a certain product, it can very quickly become a tool for the government to use uh, in controlling or like influencing the subjects of their country. And I feel like that's a dangerous thing. But if it's an open thing, if it's just in the market as one of the many others, then I feel like it's completely okay for the government to have something like that.
I think it's fine for the government to be involved in AI, and on the point of each country having their own separate government-owned AI, I am in agreement with this. Because now, for instance, all the AI companies like Google, Microsoft are all part of the West, and the West has their own separate agenda compared to other countries like India or any Middle Eastern countries. And so I'm in favor of any government-owned AIs or country AI for a country.
Um, okay, do you guys have anything else to add? I think we are done with the questions coming from the YouTube as well. Okay, so I think then we can conclude this session. Again, I thank Tijal and Kavish for organizing a meet like this. And I feel like in the future, as we're moving forward, although it may seem like small steps, discussions like these are going to be crucial. And the more diverse these discussions are, right now we're having it with the student body. And if like student bodies can collaborate with governments and AI organizations and have bigger discussions like these, that would be a good step in how we can handle these extremes of AI. And I think this conference was a part of that. And yeah, again, I thank you all so much for attending.
All right. Once again, thank you for your participation. It was great having you and hearing your thoughts. Um, with that, we'll be ending our first iteration of the second edition of SIGF, AI for Change, wherein we were able to shed light on how AI is set to impact education, as well as generally the lives of adolescents. We look forward to seeing you on the 24th for our next event. Um, Thank you all once again from the audience for putting in your questions. And with that, thank you.